Hi, I'm Bob Fisher, and I'm your host today on This is Design Intelligence. Mancini Duffy is a national design firm with more than 100 years of history and a tech-forward approach. William Mandara Jr. is the firm's CEO and co-owner, and Bolanle Williams Olley is the CFO and co-owner. On this edition of This is Design Intelligence, they talk about the history of the firm, the transition to the current generation of leadership and diversified work typologies, and why creating a culture of trust within the firm has been key in building the kind of place people want to come to work.
Welcome to this edition of This is Design Intelligence. Conversations with leadership voices in the built environment.
Today we're joined in the studio by Bill Mandara, the CEO of Mancini Duffy, and Bolanle Williams Olley, the Chief Financial Officer, and they're here to talk about the amazing transformation that this firm has undergone in the last several years and what the firm's future looks like. But before we get into that part of the story, Bill and Bola, tell us a little bit about yourselves, how you came to the firm, and what your role in there encompasses.
Sure. Thank you so much for having both Bill and I on your show today. So my name is Bolanle Williams Olley, CFO, and one of the partners here at Mancini. At my core, I really just like to throw theme parties, and I am by day running this amazing firm that we have. I throw awesome parties. How I ended up at Mancini, probably about 16 plus years now into my career within the AEC world. I started from the very, very, very bottom as a junior project accountant. Not by choice. I didn't want to do accounting or finance. I really wanted to carve a different path than the one my mother had. However, Fate's technical drawing class in high school and being an international student was sort of the perfect recipe for me to apply for my very first job at an architecture firm within their finance and accounting group. Ended up getting the job, and I was like, I don't even know what this role is about, but I am here, so I am going to make the most of it and really learn about the industry. And so that essentially put me on this path that I am now, like I said, 16 years in. 2008 financial crisis. Unfortunately, a lot of the folks within the accounting group got let go. That was an opportunity I saw for myself. I went and spoke to the CFO and said, hey, listen, I've been working here for about a year. I really think I can do the billing and, accounting for 16 project managers. Would you train me and invest in me so that I could really understand what I'm doing here? And he said yes. I was really bold and, saw an opportunity and I took it and essentially spent 5 years at that first job. Spent another 5 years at another firm called SOM, Skidmore and Merrill. And then I got a call in 2017 asking if I would want to come run a finance group for another architecture firm. And the person on the other line is Bill and I's partner, Christian Giordano, who is telling me about the amazing things that are happening at Mancini and how, he would like for me to join. The connection to Christian was actually from that very first job that I took as a junior project accountant. I say he just remembered my character. He always says I was the only one who talked to him when he came back to the accounting department. I joined the firm in 2017 as controller. Spent 1 year as controller and I got promoted thanks to Bill, Christian, and our other partner. They said it's time for us to stand your title to CFO. And in the following year, I joined ownership. It's been an awesome ride.
Tell us where your talent for themed parties came from. How does that fit into the whole thing?
Listen, you need a creative outlet, right? When you are dealing with numbers day in, day out. I always say I come from a family of artists, and I always thought I wasn't creative. And then I had children, and you throw one big first birthday for the child, which is really for the parent, and I caught the bug. And so, over the years, I have 2 children who are awesome kids also. And we just come up with great themes. Bill can attest to my party planning skills.
Absolutely.
So Bill, tell us a little bit about your path to date.
Sure. So a little bit different. I came from the exotic land known as New Jersey, where I came from a family that had been in the construction industry ostensibly since they came to this country from Sicily in the early 1900s. My dad was a general contractor. I spent most of my summers and time off along with my dad at work. And ever since I was a kid, between my dad and my grandfather, it was always kind of like, well, the next step in our family would be to go on the other side of things and become an architect. So I went to architecture school, graduated, got my first job at a small firm in New Jersey, worked there for about 10, 11 years, made a move to a firm where I had an opportunity to have potential ownership and run my own office. And that was all going great until the financial crisis of 2009 hit. And then that firm kind of didn't really do so well and did a lot of things that a lot of other firms did around that time. And it was then acquired by a firm called Mancini Duffy, to which I said, well, this isn't really going to be for me. And I really started trying to pursue my own thing and figure out a way in which I could just work for myself and have my own little firm. And a funny thing happened on the way to there. I kind of stayed there for a little while, treaded water while I was getting my own thing together. And I met Christian, who came here, and him and I hit it off really well. And he approached me with the idea to take over the firm. And I said, all right, why not? Thought about it for about 2 seconds, talked to my wife, and thought it was a great idea. The existing ownership at the time was very gracious in letting us take on leadership roles that non-ownership would not have, in order to facilitate a transition. And we bought the firm in 2016. And shortly thereafter, Christian said, I know this woman I used to work with who would be great. And we brought on Bola. And ever since then, it's been amazing because Bola and I have a great relationship. We trust each other a lot. And we kind of have a little bit of a shorthand at this point in what we do, because our responsibilities really do cross over quite a bit in what we do every day. And it's been a great ride ever since.
Well, I get the sense from both of your comments that you have a really close working relationship with Christian, like that the three of you work really well together. Tell us about him and tell us about that working partnership.
Well, I mean, you could, we probably have a group text between the three of us that, I have my little text groups pinned with my family, and then that's the only other one, kind of non-family one that's in there. So we certainly talk to each other constantly. Listen, Christian's a great guy. Him and I come from very different yet very, very similar backgrounds with similar values in which we were raised. And him and I met each other quickly, and we knew immediately we were going to get along. So I have a great relationship with Christian, and we get along great.
Yeah, and I think for me, coming in and all the partners who were here at the time I came in, when I wasn't a partner, being given the ability to come in, really take a look at what's happening from the financial and accounting perspective, suggest changes, state a financial vision for the group, look at our project managers and see how projects are running, and how I really worked to integrate accounting within the project management process. Having the ability to make all those changes and it not fall on deaf ears. I was given the opportunity to make changes and give recommendations as soon as I got in the door. And so, we were talking earlier about trust and, for these guys to trust me, where in essence, prior to coming to this firm, I hadn't had exposure, I would say, to firm-wide finances, right? So I essentially got a double promotion when I came to Mancini. They saw something in me that they felt, like this girl can come in and do a kick-ass job. And because of that, I think, our working relationship where that trust was built, where, I was given opportunity to grow and learn really, really quickly on the job, I don't take that for granted at all. And so the working relationship that the three of us have, along with, our other partners and our management team, I would say has been one that I haven't, coming up in the career, I didn't get an opportunity to see with other leaders, see at other firms. And so giving that space to really make impact next to none from me. It's helped us as we've navigated, I would say, the last 3 years, just developed a deep trust amongst each other. We all know our strengths, we know our weaknesses, we know how to balance off of each other. So it's been great, I think, for us to just learn each other professionally and personally.
Well, it sounds like a really great situation because it's not every firm that embraces metrics and numbers and finances. What kind of culture around measurement, numbers, money have you all tried to cultivate at Mancini Duffy?
I think one of the things that I tried to do as soon as I came into the door was just look at the rhythms that we have in place, because you cannot fix what you're not measuring, right? If you just try to close your eyes or don't pay attention, you're essentially driving your car blind. And so I'm very big on rhythms. What are our weekly financial rhythms? What are we paying attention to every week? What are we looking at every month? What information are we sharing to our studio leaders or project managers that are putting them in a much better position to make decisions from a numbers perspective, to make decisions on their projects? Because you're dealing with simple to complex projects, right? And it's very easy to just get caught up in doing awesome work. Architects and interior designers are amazing. But we need to pause for a second and make sure that, okay, we issued an invoice. Are we following up on that invoice? Or we initially said we were going to have 3 people working on a project. Well, now you have 10 people working on the project. What's going on, right? Are we still within scope, within budget? And if you do not have certain rhythms in place, none of that is going to be measurable, right? We are not going to be able to see where we're doing well and how we double down on our good efforts, like what is making us do well on certain projects and where we're failing, and very quickly trying to minimize whatever is within our control. All of that stems from being transparent about what the numbers are saying and sharing that and explaining, right? And kind of like breaking down in language that architects and designers understand, not accounting speak.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, what does Bill want to know? Is my firm okay? Are we going to be fine next month? What do we need to pay? What money came in?
Yeah. And part of what makes it all work is we all, listen, I know how to put buildings together and I know how to make music. I don't, and I grew up with my dad who owned a company. So I kind of understood some of the basics of it, but I didn't, I went to architecture school. I did not get an accounting degree or a finance degree. So I don't, I understand the basics, but like Bola said, it makes it a lot easier when you have somebody, A, that you can trust, and B, that can put it into a package that's digestible. Because when I first came to Mancini, I had not been involved in the finances of the firm. And sometimes, quite frankly, I would sit through some of these things and I would either, my eyes would glaze over or I'd feel overwhelmed. But at any rate, the same result was me, start thinking about what I was going to make for dinner or what else we were going to do or what my next meeting was. So I'm grateful that Bo is here, A, to have somebody to trust, and B, to, like you said, put it in a digestible fashion for us. And I think that even with Christian too, him and I, like I mentioned, we're very similar, yet we do different types of things, and we've both excelled at different types of things, where Christian has always been on the design end and can speak that language very well, whereas I've always been on the technical end and I can speak that very well. And we don't get in each other's way. And we, like I said, we know what we're good at, and we're not as good as the other person.
So Bill, we were lucky enough to interview you for the Design Intelligence Quarterly, and that story should appear in October 2023. And in that story, you told us a little bit about the history of the firm and the transition to the current generation of leadership. Can you kind of give us an overview of that?
Sure. So, Mancini Duffy is a more than a century-old company that initiated as a single-person firm, and then into a multiple ownership that did banks in New York and a lot of historic buildings. And then, fast forward to the 80s when Ralph Mancini and O'Neill Duffy had a partnership really made by a potential client out of necessity. They merged the firm very quickly and became an interiors powerhouse, through the 90s and 2000s. Ralph eventually transitioned his ownership to Tony Sharippa, Dina Frank, and others in the mid-2000s. And, in the early 2010s to mid-2010s, they were getting ready to move on. And they had, Christian came up with the idea, and he had approached the ownership about a transition. And, it took a while to get there. There was a lot of hard work, a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of planning. But eventually we did get there, and we were able to buy the firm from them. And then we were able to bring in people like Bola and Jessica that we really felt would complement the leadership group. But there was a lot of work that happened there as far as not just transitioning the ownership of the firm, but transitioning the type of firm that it was. One thing that throughout my career I can say, and I've been fortunate to work on an enormous variety of project types, whether it's been industrial types, high-end restaurants, healthcare projects, industrial, retail, office buildings, you name it, residential types. I've always been able to work on a lot of different types of projects. And one thing I saw firsthand, and I believe Christian did too, in 2009, was working at a firm that did corporate interiors for financial firms. You really saw how quickly that crisis really devastated that firm as well as a lot of other ones. So from a work typology, we wanted to make sure we diversified the work we do, which is one of the reasons, thankfully, we're enjoying quite a lot of success right now, is because we have experts in so many different types of real estate and architecture and construction projects. If one industry is not doing as well, the other one can pick it up. So we're very fortunate to do that. That was one transition we had to actively make. And quite frankly, at first, it was a little bit tough because you had some folks that were used to working on only one type of project. And, if they were doing high-end attorney offices, maybe they didn't want to build an industrial distribution facility somewhere in New Jersey. But, we were able to find people that could do that work. And, we were able to bring in people with those types of expertise, such as life sciences and healthcare. So it was a little bit of work to do that. And then as far as changing the culture of the firm, that was something that similarly took years and a lot of effort. And it was a concerted effort, and it was something that we had planned and something that we thankfully accomplished over the years.
Well, it sounds like you and Christian and your other partners had a strong vision for where you wanted to go. What was the vision that you developed when you were originally taking over the firm, and how does that parlay into your vision moving forward?
Well, for me, it was really trying to build the firm where I wish I was able to work, because quite frankly, I spent a lot of time in my career working at places that I did not care for and spending Sunday nights not too happy about having to go to work the next day. So it was really all started with, and that was a conversation Christian and I had early on, even before we started working together when we were out one night, was how great it would be to be able to build the type of firm where we would want to work and we would want to be a part of. And that was kind of, for me at least, a guiding principle in a lot of the things we would do. Would 25-year-old Bill really want to work here and feel like a part of it, as opposed to, getting browbeaten and wanting to never go to the office again. And, that was one of the guiding principles that really helped us out a lot.
So what kind of place do you want to work?
I mean, a place where your work is valued, where you're treated well, where if you have an idea, people listen to it. You have an opportunity to do whatever you want to do. I mentioned all the different sectors we have somebody who came to us and wanted to do aviation work. They had one job, and before you know it, there's a ton of different jobs. That's a whole sector we're doing. We had a woman here who wanted to work on education. She did a project, and before you know it, we have, she has her whole little group and doing all this education work. All of that to a person here who was very interested in technology and things a little bit above my head, and was able to, with a little bit of time and resources provided by us, develop a completely different way in which we deliver our design. So giving that opportunity to people and listening to people and making sure that they feel that their work is valued and appreciated.
And I'll add to that, right? Because I came in 1 year after they became owners. And I think as I was considering moving, one of the things that I did was, before even chatting with Christian in an interview, was I looked at the firm's social media page, their website. And one of the things I really, really appreciated back now 6+ years ago is that I could see the people that worked at the firm, right? They showcased down to the guy who worked in the office services and literally just retired, I think maybe around COVID or the year after. He had been at the firm 35 years or 30 years, and he was on the page, right? And it was almost like, the humans behind the company. And for me, that's what I connect to, right? How do you treat your people? How do you showcase your people? Do you respect and value everyone, no matter their role? I could see that when I met with Christian, a lot of the things that I asked about was on the firm's values, right? I was a young mom when I moved here. I had 2 children under 2 that have now grown up with the firm. And I needed flexibility, right? I was like, listen, children are like, I cannot tell you if I will be in the office tomorrow because I can wake up and something happens or a school calls. Would you afford me the flexibility that I need as a mom? I will work really hard. Mothers are very, very efficient. We have limited time, so we'll get our stuff done. But I need to know that the firm had that flexibility. So a lot of the things in terms of what the firm valued, what they were trying to create, space to grow, meaning promoting people who, maybe in a traditional firm might not be principal yet, or like myself. I use myself always as a perfect example. I am the most unlikely candidate to have been a controller, right? If you look at my career ladder, you would have thought my next level to be like assistant controller, right? Shadowing a controller. But no, they're like, you're ready. Even before I could say I was ready, right? That speaks to the firm's value. And then also this idea of being very entrepreneurial, right? Like what talents do you have and how can we as a firm help support and nurture it within you so that, you can thrive, right? Bill's an awesome musician. I think that is what sort of like attracted me to the firm, right? A lot of us here are multi hyphenates. We have various passions, and none of your passions outside of your quote unquote professional work is shunned upon, but we actually encourage it. And I feel like we have people who are working with us that are more engaged because of this environment that we've worked to create.
And just to kind of postscript onto things that I wish I had as a firm, architects have massive, fragile egos, and they tend to make everything about themselves. But it's true. Having worked for a lot of them over the years, and to be able to put your own ego aside for a second, perhaps, and deflect some credit to other people, really, it gets paid off and it comes back in a much larger fashion. And similarly, when my wife had our first child back in 2003, she wanted to, like any new mom, she needed a little bit of flexibility. And the company, it wasn't an architecture firm, but the company she worked for basically said, no, you're either going to come here and work full time or you're out. And my wife actually ended up being a stay-at-home mom, which worked out great. But that is something that I wish, she had that opportunity to go somewhere where they could, perhaps treat her a little bit better.
So values are so important to a firm, right? They are the bedrock of the culture that you create. Do you take a formal approach to sort of talking about the values? Are they documented someplace? Or is it something that is just part of the DNA of the firm now? We've done exercises. We have our core values. We have them on coffee cups and we have them here and everybody knows them. But quite frankly, anything you can do with that is all a bunch of BS if everybody doesn't live it every day and live by example and set the example for that. So let's talk a little bit about trust. Trust is such an important concept in making any kind of transition. Clearly, there's a lot of trust in the leadership team, among the leadership team, based on the stories that you were telling. And people need to feel as though they are trusted if they are going to bring more of themselves and be more authentic in the workplace. How is it that you all approach trying to create a trusting environment?
I mean, being yourself is a good start. Like I said, as the biggest part of leadership, which I quite frankly learned from my dad, was you have to be yourself and you have to let people see who you are. And if people see that you are yourself and for the good and the bad, then they're encouraged to do that as well. It also does, promote trust, because people think if I can trust you to be myself and not put on airs, then certainly you can trust me that I'm not going to judge you if you're a little bit different, or you do something a little bit differently than I did. Perhaps we can learn from each other.
Yeah, and I think for us, because of what Bill just said, there's a ripple effect down to the next tier of leaders, right? Who are some running our studios, right? Knowing that they have leaders who are real, not perfect, allows them to show up as real, not perfect, to the project managers and teams that they're supervising and working with, especially when you are working on projects as a team. They really need to develop that sense of trust to deliver excellent work to our clients, as well as excellent work to each other, holding themselves accountable. And if we ran a firm where if you make one mistake, it is the end of the world. And again, we're not seeing it as a one failing very fast and learning and, and course correcting from whatever mistake you might make, it would shoot us in the foot, so this is like many years of them watching us, not just talking the talk, but actually walking it. We are not the smartest folks in our room. Our management/leadership team is, I think, even before there's some folks who have gotten promotions over the years, but we had one of the gentlemen that's on the team. He was on the management team before he was 30. That gives you a pulse of what is happening on the floor. That also helps us develop trust with the folks who work with us at the firm. It's like, okay, these people are really serious about saying that they promote a culture where, no matter your age, no matter what our difference is, right, that there's diversity within the leadership group. And that in itself, I think when folks who are in the firm see that, it builds trust. It's like, okay, they're really serious. It's not just owners making decisions and just, with a hammer sending it down. But we care enough about our people to have representation of everyone making the decisions that affect all of our lives. So trust is big. You can see the projects that succeed and do really well. It's because the teams have deep trust in each other's work, deep trust knowing that they will show up for each other and walk through the challenges that are existing on the projects and figure it out together. Those are the ones I see from a financial side. Which projects are doing well, which bottom lines are getting impacted greatly, is from those teams or projects that they've developed this good sense of trust amongst each other.
A lot of trust will come out of the way that you talk about treating people, like treating people with respect, listening to them, being true to who you are and presenting yourself authentically. But do you do things to consciously build trust either among teams or in the whole firm?
One of the things that we do, which we just had this past Friday in September, we have our town halls where we every single month we are speaking to the whole firm and talking about project wins, project losses, where we are financially, right? There's a lot of transparency there. That helps. When you lay out a vision, that helps folks consciously, be reminded of their why. Why are they in the company? How do they fit into this whole journey that we're all on? And I think having that sort of like centering as a whole organization every month helps us with that. The town hall might not only just be, firm status, but then they have a social one. So, for example, the one that we just had was the Duffys, which is like the Oscars, but for the firm, right? That it was pretty cool. Not done by us, done by people at the firm, right? We essentially trust our employees to put together an amazing team building. I mean, technically, that really is what it is, right? So, from a culture perspective, like that's one avenue where we intentionally build trust in the the vision of the firm and where we're taking them to, pulling everybody together, showing them where we're at. Once we set our goals at the start of the year and how we're progressing towards that intentionally builds trust from that aspect.
Yeah, but so listen, and again, that's one way in which, it's an active thing, like you mentioned, but the rest of it really just has to be genuine, and it has to be, like I said, living it, where if we're on a project and somebody messes up, somebody makes a mistake potentially, and thankfully nobody got killed, nobody got hurt, and we can fix it. Instead of ripping their head off and telling them what a horrible person they are, taking the time to sit with them and show them that the world's not going to end. This is what happened. This is how we fix it. This is what we get through it. And this is how it doesn't happen again. And doing that in a way that helps grow, lets people know that they have your trust to go through and do things and give their best efforts. And if something doesn't quite work out the way it was, they're not going to get killed. They're not going to get fired. They're not going to get, their head ripped off or anything like that, because it has to be balanced with things that are planned as well as really living it, because there's so many, in general right now, there's so many contrivances out there, and there's so many people that are just full of it, that put these things out there and don't live it. And people can see through that pretty quickly. So it has to be balanced with both ends of it.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So when you think about the future, what do you see for Mancini Duffy?
World domination. Well, I mean, listen, the idea is to take what we have here, what we've built, and start to spread that around, start to spread that in other markets within the United States, and just keep that in manageable groups and keep that and spread it around and support it and grow the company and grow the business.
I think for me, in terms of Mancini's future, part of what really excited me about joining ownership was the incredible things that we're doing with technology and how it not only just impacts our firm, but actually impacts the profession, right? I can't tell you how many times I talk about our design lab, our 360 design process, our now patent approved software that we've developed. And I see the excitement and the world of possibilities that I think we didn't even envision when we first had folks curing a 3D printed model outside in the sun in our old office for 3 days. We could not have imagined the advancement, innovation that has happened over the last 5 years. And so when I think about the future, I mean, there's a world of limitless possibilities for us as a firm, continuing to do, of course, incredible projects, serving, our core customers and clients, still working with amazing people who believe in how we think differently, how we are doing things the Mancini way, how we are helping to solve the issues that they have. I think our future is really exciting from that standpoint. I think also it allows our peers also feel challenged, right? If they are have gone out and it made all this investments into tech, and like I said, we now have this, patent approved software. Well, you got to step your game up, right? You have to step your game up in terms of defining what your own unique selling point is. It's been incredible for me to just step into that lab, and I bet you I'll step in there this afternoon, and they've developed another solution for our clients that I didn't see last week. That sort of innovation being weaved into just your day-to-day job, I think is next to none, right? And I'm very fortunate to be part of our story, so I'm excited for what the future holds for us.
Well, it sounds like there's a tremendous amount of energy for whatever's next in your adventure. Bill and Bola, thank you so much for being with us on This is Design Intelligence, and we wish you the very best in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of This is Design Intelligence. The producer is Laura Spells. The sound engineer is Jared Knable. This has been a DI Media Group production.